To the Government House Weekly Press Briefing and COVID-19 update for the week of November 7th, 2022. For the benefit of the radio listening audience, I am Government House Communications Director Richard Mota. Assistant Commissioner Ruben Malloy is joining me on behalf of Health Commissioner Justa Encarnacion this afternoon for the latest COVID-19 and monkeypox data and information on where Virgin Islands residents can get a COVID-19 test, vaccine, and booster shot, and also information on where and how you can get vaccinated against monkeypox. But before I go to the Department of Health for this week's COVID data, today kicked off the cruise ship season for the island of St. Croix with the docking of Royal Caribbean's Grandeur of the Seas, which has an estimated 3,153 passengers. There were some questions due to the weather and choppy waters offshore, whether that ship would make its call to the Ann Abramson Marine Terminal down in Frederiksted, but it is here and it is docked down in Frederiksted as we speak. Tomorrow we expect, weather permitting, Royal Caribbean's Voyager of the Seas to bring an additional 5,279 passengers and crew. And on Wednesday, Valiant Lady of Virgin Cruise Lines will dock at the Ann Abramson Marine Facility down in Frederiksted. So the cruise season is in full swing in St. Croix. And so again, congratulations to everyone who played a part in making this a reality. And of course, I know this is a great economic boom for the town of Frederiksted and for all of the vendors and other people in the hospitality industry here, particularly on the island of St. Croix. Speaking of the weather, we want to send our thoughts and prayers to the people of St. Lucia as they experienced heavy flooding as a result of the thunderstorms and the thunderstorm activity and systems in the region. We pray that there was no loss of life and that they can recover quickly. I have VITEMA Director Darryl Joshin here for a quick look at weather ahead of tomorrow's general election, as we expect torrential rainfall to impact the territory between today and tomorrow. But before we go to Director Joshin, I will turn over the briefing to Assistant Commissioner Malloy. Ruben?
Thank you, Director Mota. There has been a low but consistent uptick in COVID-19 cases over the last week. While the numbers don't particularly demonstrate a huge increase, they are still a good indicator that the virus is presently spreading in the community, and we should all take precautions to prevent its spread. This week's COVID-19 numbers are as follows. We have a total of 61 active cases territory-wide, 47 on St. Croix, 14 on St. Thomas, and none on St. John. And our hospitalizations territory-wide total 0. 0 on St. Croix at the 1 F. Louis Hospital and Medical Center, and 0 on St. Thomas at the Schneider Regional Medical Center. As a reminder, both adult COVID-19 and flu vaccines are available at all Department of Health community health clinics throughout the territory. And you should conveniently get both vaccines together. The new temporary hours for the St. Croix Community Health Clinics are Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. St. Thomas Clinic hours remain the same, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. For children ages 6 months and older, both the bivalent COVID-19 vaccine and the flu vaccine are available at the maternal child health clinics. Vaccine appointments at MCH are necessary, so please telephone 340-244-0016 on St. Croix, 3777-8804, extension 2600 on St. Thomas, and 340-776-6400 on St. John to arrange appointment. Testing continues to be available on St. Croix Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the Charles Howard Memorial parking lot. On St. Thomas, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the Snyder Regional Medical Center, Loading Dock, and on St. John on Wednesday from 12 noon to 3 p.m. at the Virgin Islands Port Authority gravel lot. The Department of Health is pleased to report that the Virgin Islands continues to have no confirmed monkeypox cases. Monkeypox vaccines are available at the Department of Health Community Health Clinics by appointment only. To make an appointment for monkeypox vaccine, please telephone 340-690-6301. The chair of the Board of Elections has informed the public that masks are required to enter any of the voting centers. The mask mandate ended several months ago, and the Department of Health is in support of his decision. Your personal decision to continue to wear a mask or not wear a mask will be recognized and supported. The Board of Elections will have hand washing stations and hand sanitizers available. Be safe as you exercise your right to vote. In closing, the Department of Health wants to remind everyone of the Governor's Our Best Life program, known as Mind and Body Walk-Up Wednesdays. Sessions will be held on Wednesday at the Eliza McBean Clock Tower on St. Croix, the Emancipation Garden on St. Thomas, and the Orville Brown Basketball Court on St. John. Each session begins at 5:30 p.m. So join us for some lively soca zumba. Thank you for the time. Back to you, Richard.
Thank you, Ruben. As I mentioned at the top, we have VITEMA Director Darrell Joshin here with us, and so we will be turning over the briefing to him now for a quick weather outlook and what to expect for tomorrow. Director.
Thank you, Director Mota. Good afternoon, Assistant Commissioner Malloy. Good afternoon, Virgin Islanders. A call to National Weather Service less than an hour ago to San Juan, Puerto Rico, indicates that weather for tomorrow on Election Day will be a few isolated showers in the morning, but after 1 p.m. until 6 p.m., the territory will experience on the islands of St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John increased showers with some heavy at times. After 6 p.m., the chance of rain showers will diminish throughout the evening. The territory is still under a flash flood watch, which is set to expire at 6 p.m., but the National Weather Service in Puerto Rico, the meteorologist will be meeting at 2 p.m. to assess any continued threats and need to extend the flash flood watch. Later today at 4 p.m., VITEMA, the board members of the Board of Elections, Department of Public Works, VI Police, Fire and EMS will meet with the National Weather Service in Puerto Rico for a weather update and preparation to support any inclement weather at voting sites. The final meeting is set for 5 a.m. tomorrow morning with National Weather Service in Puerto Rico. The bottom line for tomorrow for all of us, do not let the weather be a reason not to vote, and bring an umbrella along just in case, please. Finally, for those that are wanting to know the rainfall from Friday through Sunday throughout the territory, we had 4 to 5 inches of rain on St. Croix, 5 to 6 inches of rain on St. Thomas, St. John, and then 6 to 7 inches of rain on St. Thomas. So as you all know, it was a very, very wet weekend. Today, well, it was a good day. Yesterday was a good day. Tomorrow, a little bit of rain, but please come out and vote. As always, VITEMA reminds you to be prepared, stay vigilant, and be informed. Thank you very much, and back to you, Richard.
Thank you, Director. The Office of Management and Budget has announced the release and distribution of Social Security beneficiary stipend checks on St. Thomas and St. Croix, Wednesday, November 9th, and Thursday, November 10th. As you know, this is something the governor and the administration has been working on, and this and other ways to bring relief to individuals impacted by COVID and the rising economic inflation. Distribution of the checks on both islands will begin at 9 a.m. and end at 5 p.m. on both days. So I will repeat that: on Wednesday, November 9th, and Thursday, November 10th, those stipends will be distributed on the islands of St. Croix and St. Thomas between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. This payment is to help seniors and disabled persons living on fixed incomes address the hardships imposed by the global COVID-19 pandemic and resulting economic inflation. Distribution on St. Thomas will be conducted in the parking lot of the Roy Lester Schneider Hospital, so their front parking lot over there, and on St. Croix in the parking lot of the VIA building in Estate Diamond. And so those two locations, as I mentioned earlier, on Wednesday, November 9th, and Thursday, November 10th, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you can go and get those stipend cost of living payments. On St. John, checks can be picked up from the administrator's office beginning today, Monday, November 7th, 2022. Recipients are required to present a valid picture ID to receive the stipend. If you cannot make it on either of these days, distribution will continue next week. We realize some individuals cannot physically pick up their checks in person, and since the local government was unable to validate the accuracy of the addresses provided by the Social Security Administration, we are urging you or someone on your behalf to contact the Office of Management and Budget via email at arpa@omb.vi.gov or call 340-774-0750 with the following information. You'll need to provide your name, the last four of your Social Security number, your phone number, and a correct mailing address. And once you do that, arrangements will be made to have the checks mailed to that correct address. As I mentioned, these funds are being made available from the American Rescue Plan Act State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which allows for helping households respond to the negative impacts of the pandemic. Should you have any questions, please contact the Office of Management and Budget's main office on St. Thomas at 774-0750. Again, that number is 340-774-0750. On a final note, I want to congratulate our very own Virgin Islands National Guard member, Staff Sergeant Joy Bird, on winning the 2022 Miss Veteran America competition in Orlando recently, Orlando, Florida. Staff Sergeant Bird, a music teacher and a member of the Virgin Islands National Guard's 73rd Army Band, topped 100 other competitors for the title. During her time holding this title, she will serve as the official spokesperson for Final Salute, Inc., which is an organization that provides homeless women, veterans, with safe and suitable housing. So, Staff Sergeant Bird, congratulations. That is a big deal, and we are all proud of you. And so coming on behalf of the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor and everyone here at Government House, congratulations again, and keep up the great work. I will take any questions from the media now, and I see we have a couple joining us virtually. I will start with Lasiba Knight from the St. Croix Avis. Go ahead, Lasiba.
Hello, good afternoon, Richard. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing?
Lasiba.
Awesome. My question, Ruben Malloy. I was hoping to get some more information about that mask mandate. Can people vote without a mask, or?
Thank you for the question, Lasiba. Yes, Virgin Islands can vote without a mask. The mask mandate was lifted several months ago, and so it's up to individual entities to determine what their policies are related to mask wearing. So yes, Virgin Islanders can vote without a mask, with or without a mask.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you, Lasiba. We have Suzanne Ellis from the Virgin Island Source. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you, Richard. I have no questions today.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We have someone from the Virgin Islands Daily News online with us. I'm not sure which reporter, but go ahead.
Good afternoon, Richard. I've got 3 questions.
You're breaking up a little bit. I think this is Suzanne Carlson from the Virgin Islands Daily News. Go.
It is, and as I said, it never works for me, so I'll do my best. Why are the $500 stipends being given out on the election week, and is this an appropriate use of federal funding? Is it an attempt to curry favor with voters?
No, not at all. As I mentioned earlier, this is something that the administration has been working on for quite some time. There was an effort to get the correct address listing from the Social Security Administration. If you remember correctly, or if you can remember back when we had the stimulus payments going out, there were a lot of discrepancies with the information that we got from the Social Security Administration. Obviously, they don't share personal bank information, and so for all of those individuals who received their Social Security benefits in direct deposit, we would have to then, because they didn't give us their bank account information, we had to physically mail checks to those individuals. Many of those addresses contained a wide array of discrepancies, and so there was a months-long effort, quite frankly, to try to correct them, and it just was not working out. We couldn't validate many of those addresses, and so that's what took that actually took several months. And so to answer your question, no, this was not an election eve attempt to curry favor with voters, and it is an appropriate use of the ARPA funds. These funds, as I mentioned, are available from the American Rescue Plan Act State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which specifically allows for helping households respond to the negative economic impacts of the pandemic. And so this is an appropriate use of that. I hope that answers your question.
On the subject of delay, what's the status of the medical law, and when will it be implemented?
I need you to repeat that question, Susan. You're coming in a little choppy, so bear with us over here.
What's the status of the medical cannabis law, and when will it be implemented?
Well, the medicinal cannabis law, that's a question for the Office of Cannabis Registry. They are still working, to my understanding, on the rules and regulation, but so you would have to ask the Office of Cannabis Registry on the status on that part of the legislation.
I have asked, they haven't responded.
Okay.
So my last question is about mental health. I understand the governor says he's addressing the crisis, but yet there's still no inpatient mental health treatment facility in the territory.
Well, there are
And on Saturday, a woman was stabbed by a suspect who has a long history of mental illness and prior arrests for similar conduct. What is the government doing to address the most vulnerable, most serious cases? Because these people currently have nowhere to go. Yeah,
so Suzanne, the governor has actually, in 2019, the Virgin Islands Code has, it's very, I wouldn't say vague, but it needed some work on many of the legislation that we have to address situations especially individuals who may be suffering from mental health issues and the criminal justice system. And so the governor submitted legislation back in 2019 called the Virgin Islands Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities Act. That has been before the legislature for quite some time. That legislation attempts to really clean up the Virgin Islands Code and provide some clear guidance on how to detain and even commit violent offenders or individuals who may be a threat to themselves and to others. And so that legislation is before the legislature, and it has been for quite some time.
I'm not asking about the legislature.
Yeah,
I'm asking
additionally,
what the health department is doing to construct a facility where Virgin Islanders can receive treatment locally.
Additionally, you have facilities throughout the territory, like the clubhouse that the Virgin Islands Department of Health is currently running right now in the state Richmond. We support a number of nonprofits who do this type of work, transitional housing. So there are a number of initiatives that the government has currently supported and is actively supporting to provide those services to individuals in the community who need those services.
There are no inpatient treatment facilities where people can receive residential care. When is that going to happen?
Sure. I have the Department of Health here who would like to provide some more clarity on that as well.
The Department of Health, good afternoon. The Department of Health has the Elder Schulterbrand facilities on St. Thomas for residential facility.
They haven't accepted new patients for a long time, correct?
It depends on the acuity level of those patients. It's not a, it's a residential facility. For those persons in need of more complex treatment, Department of Health, along with the territory, has a number of off-island, has placements with a number of off-island facilities. We continue to work on establishing local facilities, which is going through the process of,
That process has been in progress for years. And Elder Schulterbrand is not accepting patients in need of serious care. So I don't understand how this is being addressed if it's such an emergency.
So we are currently have asked for Office of Disaster Recovery for assistance in identifying our architectural engineering services to erect a facility on the Anna's Hope plot of land on St. Croix. So there are several measures currently in place to address that situation and to establish
That Anna's Hope facility has been in discussion for years, and there's been no progress.
Well, Susan, I would say this. Just because you have not seen a physical structure does not mean that there has not been progress. There are a number of things to which Assistant Commissioner Malloy has been alluding to. There are a number of processes that happen behind the scenes, one being changing some of the laws that exist, because you have a facility, but if there's no clear law on how you that speaks to how you commit people who are a danger to themselves or others, a facility essentially does you no good. And so to say that there hasn't been any progress, I don't think that that's a fair statement. There's a lot of things that go on prior to, a physical structure being erected that has to happen.
Courts local fit people all the time. Why is the law deficient?
Yeah, but you're saying if someone has, so this is, I guess we're saying the same thing, but we're saying them in different ways. The court has the ability to do that by law once someone has, committed a law, a violent offender who has either posed a danger to themselves or someone else. what Mr. Malloy was explaining to you is for some of those individuals, the Department of Health and the Virgin Islands government sends, by order of the court, they send those individuals off to off-island providers who are in partnership with the Virgin Islands Department of Health and the Virgin Islands government. So that does happen, but
Right.
in terms of other individuals who are homeless or who may have mental issues, who are not presenting as a danger to themselves or others, or an immediate danger to themselves or others, there's no way that the government of the Virgin Islands can just pick them up off of the street and put them into a facility, and that's what I'm speaking about.
We do provide.
If there is no facility, I'm sorry.
That there are nonprofits throughout the community, and there are other providers, there are other partners in the territory who provide services for these individuals, substance abuse treatment services, even transitional housing, all of that.
The nonprofits are doing work. What is the health department doing?
The Virgin Islands government is supporting the nonprofits, and as I just mentioned, the Department of Health is also in the process. Mr. Malloy also mentioned that the Department of Health is in the process. So, Susan, we could have more of an in-depth discussion offline. If you want more of a status, we can get all of that comprehensive information to you from the Department of Health and from the other stakeholders who are involved. But you asked a question, and we provided you the answers to the best of our ability right now.
Understood, but I've been hearing this for years.
Yeah, understood. Okay. Well, Susan, we'll have that conversation. That concludes our briefing this afternoon. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you for the media for providing your questions.